Have you ever looked at a man and thought, how does he keep ruining his own life and not even see it? Or maybe, just maybe, you've asked that same question, looking in the mirror. Welcome, fellow seekers of wisdom. You've arrived at Stoic Journey, a sanctuary where ancient philosophy meets the chaos of modern life. I'm honored to walk this path beside you, not as a guru, but as a man who's fallen, learned, and chosen to rise with reason. Now, today's video is titled 6 Signs of a Stupid Man. And before you get defensive, let me be clear. This isn't an insult. It's a mirror, because stupid isn't about IQ. It's about patterns, blind patterns. And Carl Jung said it best. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So, if you're brave enough to examine those patterns, to confront the quiet self-sabotage most men ignore, then this video might just change your trajectory. But before we begin, if this message resonates, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You never know who in your circle might need to hear this next. Let's begin. In a society drowning in superficial comforts and endless distractions, we are forced to confront a harsh reality, a reality where the very patterns of behavior that keep us stagnant masquerade as normal life. It is a truth too often ignored. Stupidity is not an inevitable fate, but a series of choices, a choice to remain oblivious to one's own shortcomings, to continuously repeat destructive cycles, and to let our emotions, failures, and negative influences dictate our lives. Today, we embark on an uncompromising journey into the heart of that darkness, extracting wisdom from the Stoic philosophers who dared to speak the inconvenient truth about human nature. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. These words from Marcus Aurelius cut through the complacency of our modern existence. They remind us that true strength lies not in amassing wealth or chasing fleeting pleasures, but in the unyielding mastery of our inner world. The modern man, intoxicated by the allure of immediate gratification and ensnared in patterns of self-sabotage, has often surrendered the arena of his own mind to the forces of habit and unexamined thought. Consider the man who, overwhelmed by the pressures of a competitive workplace, relinquishes responsibility and blames external circumstances, colleagues, the economy, or a capricious boss, rather than looking inside for the root of his discontent. This is not a matter of low IQ or lack of intelligence. It is the consequence of a willful ignorance that breeds mediocrity and despair. Imagine a colleague who, after every setback, repeats the same unproductive behaviors. Each time he encounters obstacles, he opts to lash out in anger rather than reflecting on his own reactions. His inability to harness self-awareness results in a painful, continuous cycle of failure. This cycle, of blaming fate, of externalizing responsibility, is a stain on the human spirit. It is the antithesis of Stoic wisdom, which urges us to confront our inner weaknesses, to cultivate self-discipline, and to remain resolutely honest about our limitations. The brutal truth is that the patterns we cling to are like shackles. They bind us to a life where suffering is not only inevitable, but predictable. And yet there is hope. For within the harsh light of self-recognition lies the pathway to growth. Interactive reflection. Have you ever found yourself trapped in a cycle where you consistently blame your circumstances instead of examining the choices that led you there? What if, instead of surrendering to the chaos of your emotions and external conditions, you took ownership of your inner state and harnessed it as a source of strength? Concrete exercises. Begin a daily practice of introspection. Every evening, write down 3 moments when you felt powerless or reacted impulsively. Next to each, note one specific, practical step you could take the following day to counter that reaction. Over time, this exercise will help you reclaim control of your inner life, transforming weakness into resilience. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus. Epictetus challenges us to reframe our experiences. His words demand that we look past the surface of every event, the loss, the setback, the moment of rage, and consider our response as the true measure of our character. The modern world bombards us with provocations, social media outrage, political divisiveness, personal betrayals. In these moments of high emotion, the impulse to react is almost instinctive. Yet this reaction, an automatic, unthinking outburst, only reinforces the very chains that keep us in bondage. The Stoic response is radically different. It demands that we pause, that we allow the initial surge of emotion to pass, and then assess the situation with cold, clear logic. Consider the all-too-common scenario of an online argument. In the heat of a digital confrontation, it is all too easy to fire off anger-laden messages without pause. The aftermath is regret and the escalation of hostility. A Stoic, however, would take a step back. They would recognize the power in withholding immediate reaction, a gesture that might seem almost countercultural in an era where loud voices dominate the conversation. They understand that by controlling their response, they are not only reclaiming their power, but also setting a standard for rational discourse that is desperately needed in today's divisive climate. Interactive reflection. When was the last time you reacted impulsively to a provocative comment or situation? What might have changed if you had paused and considered a measured response instead? Could you envision a scenario where that pause might have diffused tension rather than stoked the flames? Concrete exercise. Next time you feel a surge of anger or frustration, whether online or in a face-to-face conversation, practice the technique of counting to 10 while taking slow, deliberate breaths. After this brief interlude, note down your initial impulse and then write an alternative, more reasoned reaction. Over time, this habit will foster an environment where rationality supersedes raw emotion. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Seneca. Seneca's words are a stark reminder that failure is not a terminal state. Rather, it is an essential component of the cycle of growth. The endless repetition of mistakes, a soul-wrenching testament to the refusal to learn, is emblematic of a deeper existential stagnation. In our modern era, surrounded by relentless distractions and a culture that glorifies superficial success, the valuable lessons of failure are often obscured. We see people repeatedly falling into the same traps, be it in personal relationships, career choices, or financial ventures, because they refuse to face the real culprit, their own unwillingness to evolve. Picture an ambitious entrepreneur who experiences a significant setback, not once, but repeatedly. Each failure is met with the familiar refrain, "It's not my fault. The market is rigged, the timing is wrong, the economy is to blame." This excuse-driven mindset, a byproduct of emotional evasion, robs him of the opportunity to learn and recalibrate. True wisdom, as demanded by Stoicism, lies in the courage to dissect each failure, to extract the lesson buried within, and then to use that knowledge as a stepping stone toward improvement. It is a bitter pill to swallow, the realization that our recurring missteps are not born out of external forces, but of an internal refusal to learn and change. Interactive reflection. Reflect on a time when you encountered persistent failure. Were you quick to blame external factors, or did you attempt to see the lesson hidden within the disappointment? How might your future decisions change if you embraced failure as a valuable teacher rather than a verdict on your worth? Concrete exercise. Identify one recurring mistake or failure in your life. Write a detailed account of it, highlighting not only what went wrong, but also what you might have done differently. Develop a concrete action plan, a failure correction protocol that outlines specific steps you will take in similar future circumstances. Make this a living document, revisiting and revising it as you grow from each experience. The stark reality of our condition is that a great deal of the stupidity we observe in men, and indeed within ourselves, springs from the failure to choose growth over comfort, logic over impulse, and discipline over distraction. The darkness that pervades our culture is not solely the fault of external circumstances. It is the outgrowth of our own deliberate choices. Too many have succumbed to the siren song of momentary pleasure, a life led by the pursuit of cheap dopamine, a flimsy distraction from the deeper, more painful work of self-improvement. In a world rife with social media addiction, superficial relationships, and an endless chase for transient satisfaction, the true cost is measured in wasted potential and a life half-lived. Consider the individual who spends hours every day swiping through curated images and hollow interactions, convincing himself that this activity enriches his life. Yet, beneath the glossy veneer of virtual perfection lies an existence devoid of genuine connection, critical thought, and meaningful progress. This is the life of the distracted, a life where every moment of wasted time accumulates into an eternity of unfulfilled dreams. The Stoic path, however, is not one of ascetic deprivation, but of deliberate choice. It is the challenge to rise above the easy comforts of distraction and to reclaim the disciplined mind that knows true contentment comes from within. Interactive reflection. Do you recognize any patterns in your daily life where you choose fleeting pleasure over long-term fulfillment? What distractions have you allowed to dictate your choices, and how might a radical, uncompromising focus on self-discipline transform your day-to-day living? Concrete exercises. For 1 week, track your daily habits with a focus on screen time, casual interactions, and any indulgence in short-term pleasures. At the end of the week, review your log. Identify 3 habits that consistently detract from your long-term goals, and commit to replacing each with a more enriching activity, be it reading, physical exercise, or engaging in a meaningful conversation. Document your progress and share your insights with someone you trust, thereby holding yourself accountable. In examining the dark underbelly of modern life, we must also confront the toxic influence of our immediate social environment. The company we keep is a mirror of our inner self, a reflection so acute that it cannot be ignored. A man who surrounds himself with chronic complainers, lazy opportunists, and yes men betrays his own lack of ambition and the willingness to challenge his preconceived notions. As Marcus Aurelius observed, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, our greatest challenges in the very company we keep can either be the catalyst for growth or the anchor that holds us back. Envision a scenario where a person, instead of seeking out wise counsel, spends most of his time with those who reinforce his negative habits, friends who constantly complain, who never strive for improvement, and who eagerly validate his worldview of mediocrity. This echo chamber of self-justification breeds not only apathy but also an ever-deepening inertia. It is a choice to remain in a comfort zone that is ultimately prison-like, barring any chance for true growth. Conversely, the Stoic understands that true change comes from the deliberate act of surrounding oneself with influences that challenge, inspire, and above all, hold a mirror to one's shortcomings. Interactive reflection. Look around you, the friends, colleagues, and acquaintances in your life. Are they supporters of your highest potential, or do they encourage the very habits that keep you from reaching it? Would you recognize the toxic patterns if you saw them for what they truly are? Concrete exercise. Take out a piece of paper and list everyone you interact with on a regular basis. Next to each name, jot down the primary influence they have on your life. Do they motivate you to be better, or do they enable complacency? Choose 1 or 2 individuals who might be holding you back and make a plan for how you can either engage them in a constructive dialogue about your mutual goals or gradually distance yourself to create space for more positive influences. As we draw these insights together, it is abundantly clear that what we label as stupidity is not the result of an inherent lack of intelligence, but rather a series of conscious decisions that favor inertia over progress, comfort over challenge, and blame over accountability. In the relentless pursuit of immediate gratification, countless men willingly surrender the transformative power of self-mastery. This is a brutal truth, one that forces us to question our very commitments to growth and improvement. At the core of Stoic philosophy lies an uncompromising call to action, a call to relentlessly pursue self-examination, to harness the immense power of discipline, and to forge a path through the darkness of our own making. It is a call that rejects the easy allure of victimhood and instead embraces the stark, often lonely task of owning every misstep and every moment of weakness. It demands that we awaken from the delirium of self-delusion and confront our reality with a cold, unflinching gaze. Interactive reflection. If you had to admit with brutal honesty that you have at times chosen the path of least resistance, allowing the shackles of habitual behavior to dictate your life, how would that admission change your approach moving forward? In what ways could accepting responsibility for every failure become the most empowering step you have ever taken? Concrete exercise. For your final exercise today, take a moment to reflect on the overall patterns you have observed in your life over the past few months. Write a candid letter to yourself, detailing at least one significant area where you have allowed self-deception or avoidance to prevail. In that letter, outline a clear, actionable plan rooted in Stoic principles to confront this pattern head-on. Be as specific as possible, detailing the steps you will take, the habits you will change, and the new behaviors you will adopt. Seal the letter and set a date in the near future to reopen and review it, thereby holding yourself accountable to your own radical transformation. There is no denying that society as it stands is riddled with toxic elements, distractions that isolate us from our true potential, a collective blindness to self-improvement, and an almost palpable comfort in mediocrity. The modern man often finds himself adrift amid these forces, repeatedly succumbing to the fatal allure of external validation and ephemeral pleasures. Yet amidst this pervasive darkness, there exists a glimmer of hope, the Stoic path. This path is not for the faint of heart. It is harsh, uncompromising, and requires an unyielding commitment to self-awareness, discipline, and above all, honesty. It invites you to tear down the facade of ignorance, to strip away the excuses and the blame, and to stand naked before the truth of your own existence. In a world that constantly seeks to pacify and distract, it is both an act of courage and a necessity to reclaim one's inner sovereignty. Let us then reject the seductive comforts of fleeting pleasure and embrace the rigorous, even ruthless demands of true self-improvement. Only by facing our inner demons can we begin to tame them, transforming every failure into a stepping stone, every mistake into a lesson, and every negative influence into a clarion call for growth. The journey is arduous, and the truth is often cold and unyielding. But in the relentless pursuit of self-mastery, there is power, raw, unadulterated power, that no external circumstance or transient emotion can ever take away. It is a power that arises only when we decide, unequivocally, that we will no longer allow our lives to be dictated by inertia, by impulsive outbursts, or by the toxic influences of those who settle for mediocrity. In choosing the Stoic path, we choose responsibility over victimhood, action over apathy, and most importantly, growth over stagnation. Reflect now on this profound challenge. In a society where it is all too easy to blame, to procrastinate, and to retreat into the comfort of the familiar, will you dare to break free? Will you confront the stark reality of your own choices and vow, here and now, to reclaim your destiny? Remember, every moment you persist in ignorance is a moment you forfeit the boundless potential for transformation. Your journey from stupidity to wisdom, from stagnation to radical self-improvement, begins with the simple act of honest self-reflection. Let this be the turning point, a moment of clarity amid the deluge of modern distractions. If you are ready to step into the harsh light of truth and emerge stronger, more resolute and unyielding in your commitment to live a life of purpose, then the time is now. Embrace the discipline, confront the fear, and let every setback be the impetus for a profound breakthrough. In the end, the Stoic path is not about perfection. It is about the relentless pursuit of excellence, the unending process of refining and redefining oneself against a backdrop of a cold and indifferent world. And as you walk this path, remember, each painful lesson, each moment of bitter truth is not a defeat, but a spark that ignites the fire of genuine transformation. Now, as you digest these truths, I urge you to engage with this content actively. Share your thoughts, your struggles, and your victories in the comments below. Let us foster a conversation that is raw and unfiltered, a conversation that challenges the status quo and pushes each of us to rise above the trivialities of a distracted existence. Your voice matters in this relentless pursuit of self-mastery. Take up your pen, look within, and set forth on the journey of radical change. Only by consistently choosing to face the cold, harsh truths of our nature can we transcend the limitations imposed upon us by a culture that celebrates mediocrity. The future belongs to those who have the fortitude to question, to endure, and to ultimately transform every aspect of their lives through the unwavering discipline of the Stoic way. Now I leave you with one final question. In the dark mirror of your own habits, what truth do you see, and how will you begin to rewrite your story? Let this question resonate within you as the catalyst for a journey that might just change the course of your life forever. This unvarnished exploration calls for radical introspection and decisive action. Step forward into the light of your own potential. Reject the delusions that keep you confined, and let the wisdom of the Stoics guide you towards a future defined by courage, responsibility, and relentless self-improvement. The power to change is yours. Embrace it without hesitation. Thank you for joining me on this uncompromising exploration of self-mastery and the brutal truths that compel us to rise above our habitual mediocrity. As we approach the end of today's deep dive into the stark realities of our behaviors, I invite you to take these insights and turn them into action. This isn't just a video, it's a call to transform your life, to challenge the status quo that has kept you in a cycle of stagnation and unfulfilled potential. Before you leave, if you found even a sliver of resonance with today's message, if these honest reflections stirred something within you, please take a moment to hit the like button and share this video with someone you believe could benefit from confronting their own truths. Subscribe to Stoic Journey to join our growing community of individuals who are daring enough to reject complacency and commit to a life of radical self-improvement. Now here's a practical challenge to kickstart your transformation. A 5-day Stoic challenge designed to push you out of your comfort zone and into the realm of genuine growth. 5-Day Stoic Challenge. Checklist. 1. Day 1. Identify one self-limiting habit or behavior that has repeatedly held you back. Write it down in a journal or digital note. 2. Day 2. Reflect on the origin of this habit. Ask yourself what triggers it. Under what circumstances do you revert to this behavior? Write a brief reflection on your findings. 3. Day 3. Choose one concrete action to counter this habit. For example, if you tend to react impulsively, commit to practicing the count to 10 method before responding. Implement this in at least 2 different situations and note your observations. 4. Day 4. Reach out to someone whose perspective you value, a mentor, a close friend, or even someone from our community, and ask for constructive feedback on your progress. Document their insights and consider how you might integrate them into your daily practice. 5. Day 5. Revisit your journal and review your experiences from the past 4 days. Identify any small victories or breakthroughs, no matter how minor, and write a commitment for how you will continue this practice beyond the 5 days. I encourage you to share your journey in the comments below. Tell us what habit you chose to change, how you plan to overcome it, and even share any obstacles you face along the way. Your reflections could ignite a meaningful conversation that not only supports your growth, but also inspires others in our community. I genuinely believe that every step you take towards self-discipline and accountability is a victory against the inertia that so often defines modern life. By sharing your experiences, you're contributing to a collective movement, a community where vulnerability meets strength, and where the raw truth of our human experience becomes the foundation for lasting transformation. Let us use this challenge as an opportunity to hold each other accountable, to learn from our setbacks, and to celebrate the small moments of success that pave the way for a more disciplined, purposeful life. I eagerly await your stories, your insights, and your honest reflections. Remember, true power lies in your willingness to challenge your own limitations and to rewrite your narrative, one deliberate, courageous act at a time. So please, like, share, and subscribe to Stoic Journey, and drop a comment sharing your commitment to this 5-day challenge. Together, we can confront the darkness, foster self-awareness, and transform our lives, turning every setback into the stepping stone toward genuine excellence.